Blake, you're on.
Why is Mark on twice?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Blake Dolman. I'm a trial attorney with Krupnick Campbell Malone here in Fort Lauderdale. We are so happy to be sponsoring tonight's important debate, Broward's 17th Judicial Circuit Clerk of Courts. This is an incredibly important constitutional position. The clerk's office serves the 2 million residents of Broward County, almost all of whom will have an interaction with the clerk's office at some point. The office has approximately 750 employees and provides support to 90 judges and 11 magistrates. The next clerk will oversee a $34 million budget, and the clerk's office performs over 926 different constitutional, statutory functions and duties. ABOTA is one of the most important legal organizations because it is neutral and comprised of trial attorneys from both sides of the V. Its members heavily rely on the clerk's office for many different reasons, and it is an honor and a privilege for our firm to be a part of this evening. With that having been said, I'm going to turn it over to Jeff Edelman and Mitch Chester, who will host tonight's debate. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Blake, for that terrific introduction, and we appreciate Krupnick and Campbell supporting this event because it is important. I'd also like to thank our sponsors as well, Upchurch Watson Mediation Group and the Quackenbush Law Firm. We'd certainly appreciate their interest and helping us put on a terrific event like this. My name is Jeff Edelman. I'm the president of the Fort Lauderdale chapter of the American Board of Trial Advocates. And this organization, as Mr. Dolman just said, is comprised of trial lawyers from both the defense and the plaintiff side. We all have one mission. We want jury trials which are guaranteed by the 7th Amendment of the United States Constitution. We're in a very weird place right now with the COVID-19 pandemic because it has not only ripped apart so many different norms that we've all been used to, but we're used to trying cases and there's no jury trials right now. So we're going to have to be a lot more creative these days. And my tag team partner through all of this has been my friend Mitch Chester, and it's an honor to do this moderation with him today. And I'm going to now turn it over to Mitch Chester to ask the first question.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us. Ms. Forman, Judge Speiser, Judge Backman, it's a pleasure to host you all. And we thank Blake and his firm and all the other sponsors. I'm going to ask you a question. Generally, I'll ask everybody, and then each person will have 2 minutes to answer. There will be an opportunity to respond. The clerk appoints the in-court clerks for each of the judges. It's a very important role, but with the advent of the Zoom hearings and all the things that we're doing technically to allow the courts to function during COVID-19, that role seems to be even more important. The question is, what are the minimum requirements for in-court clerks in the age of Zoom hearings, whether they be motion calendars, special sets, evidentiary hearings, non-jury trials, and maybe one day jury trials? And do in-court clerks need additional training now in order to meet the challenges as we go forward through the rest of this COVID emergency? So I'd like to start out with Honorable Brenda Forman. So your answer, please.
Yes, good evening, everyone.
Okay.
Yes, Jeff.
Before we begin, I didn't say in the beginning, we're going to give each panelist 2 minutes to answer the question. I think that's a fairness to everybody so they can get everything out. I neglected to say that, but I'll be keeping time. Mr. Chester will be keeping time, but I wanted to let everybody know that before you began answering a question.
Jeff, Mitch is coming through loud and clear, but I have to really strain to hear you for whatever reason, Jeff. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, I will change the microphone while the question is being answered.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mitch. Each one of the judges that are still doing Zoom at this moment still have their own clerk that is zooming in with them as well. There is the only training that they needed to have is how to do Zoom, how to get onto Zoom. But everything else that they have done for the judge while they're on the bench is the same process that they're doing now. They're sitting, they're hearing everything. If they need to interject something, they will stop the judge and say whatever they have to say to the judge by, the Zoom. Other than that, there is no other training that they need to do at this moment. They just continue to do what they're doing with their judges. Nothing has changed.
All right, Judge Speiser, please.
Yes, well, first of all, I think that to become an in-court clerk, you have to have experience working internally within the clerk's office. It's a rare scenario, as far as my experience, that someone gets hired off the street and automatically starts as a in-court clerk. So the clerk, to be in court and satisfying the needs of an in-court clerk, has to garner the experience and wherewithal and knowledge of what the operations are of the clerk's office. Once they reach the point where they are successful there and then can become a clerk in court with the judge, then the challenges become multiplied, because the scenario that goes on when we're doing our trials live is much different now from with respect to when we're doing the trials by Zoom. For example, handling evidence. That's a totally different scenario with respect to evidence. One of my proposals with respect to the clerk's office right now, when we were doing trials live, all the evidence was just manually handled by the clerk's office, by the in-court clerk, and then transported down to the clerk's office. There was nothing done in the courtroom with respect to, for example, putting a label on every exhibit that's marked into evidence and scanning it so there's an internal warehouse record within the clerk's office of the fact that an exhibit has been marked into evidence and what that exhibit is. There have been many complaints about misplaced evidence and lost evidence. So that's one thing that has to be done. But with respect to the handling of the case, obviously, sometimes judges, even though the cases are going to be handled by Zoom, can handle that Zoom scenario through the courtroom. I've done a lot of hearings over the last 6 months before I had to resign as a judge in a civil division, where I came into the courtroom and did the hearings while the lawyers were in their respective offices. So if in fact the judge chooses, which he or she has.
That's time.
Okay, and Judge Backman, please.
Thank you. First of all, let me thank ABOTA for putting this on. I think dealing with the trial lawyers who use the court system significantly more than most, it is imperative that we discuss these issues. The question that was asked was about the training of the in-court clerks. COVID has taught us a whole new way of working. And we're going to have to live with the fact that what we used to do and what we used to know, we're not going to be doing very much more. The training, the way it works, and I agree with Judge Speiser on certain parts of that. I think the individuals should be going through the ranks within the office, learning and getting the training. I know because my former in-court clerk is now one of the major trainers of the in-court clerks. No in-court clerk goes in, no matter how inexperienced, without someone with a great amount of knowledge, training them, sitting with them, not just saying, hey, this is what you push, this is what you do. Sitting there and actually training them, watching them, teaching them, so that we get well-qualified, well-documented individuals who can do a job. And I can tell you that the two clerks I've had that over the course of my experience on the bench have been two of the absolute best. And I think it's about training. People need to know why they're doing what they're doing. It's easy to teach a robot, you do this, but a person isn't a robot, and they have to know why it is they're doing it, not just why, how to do it. I think that becomes very important, and training becomes a very important issue when it comes to the entire clerk's office. That's an issue for a different question.
Jeff, I'll toss it back to you.
All right. Thank you, Mitch. with this new era and looking at jury trials in the future, and we've been experimenting with jury selection through voir dire, what do all of you feel would be good moves to make jury selection more palatable for people who get selected? We all know the jokes about getting out of jury duty and all that, but what, and I'm going to throw this to Judge Speiser first, what can be done to make people realize how important jury service is and be more accommodating to jurors so that they are willing to serve?
Hey, first of all, I think, and obviously this could only come through significant lobbying efforts, I think that the fees that are paid for jurors that come in every day are very low. I mean, obviously, when compared to what they could be making without being in the courthouse or without serving as a juror, pales by comparison to their salaries or wages. So I think that would help, number one, to have an increase in the fee that's given to the jurors on a daily basis. Secondly, I think the fact, as I watched the Zoom trial that was conducted and recorded by with Mitch and Jeff really taking a lead in that, I think it's very, very important that the public understands that our system of justice cannot function without jurors. And that's what makes us different from every other country in the world, that in fact we have jury trials in almost every single criminal case and in a majority of civil cases. So the importance, I think, of the fact that our jurors are chosen randomly as opposed to being selected by some other method that eliminates the randomness of the selection of the jurors is something else that has to be conveyed to the jurors. I think that the jurors, furthermore, will be in a position to be more inclined to serve as jurors when they have the opportunity to realize that serving as a juror in a virtual courtroom is so much more attractive. And that was basically the opinion of the jurors that were on this trial that we had an opportunity to view, that you provided us, that in fact it was more accommodating to them. They didn't have to worry about parking. They didn't have to get up early and get to the courthouse. And they had the conveniences of being at home during juror breaks. So I think there's a lot more pluses.
All right, Judge Backman?
Yeah. I think this is one of the crucial issues that needs to be addressed. I know I talked to Jeff earlier at one point with regard to this, Mitch, I'm sorry, and to try and figure out how we're going to do this is going to be a monumental task. Jurors, when they're summoned to the clerks, to the jury room, and I think our clerk can answer it better, we get a return, I think, of about 33% of those that go out. And of course, then there's all those that want to come and they want to give their excuses why they don't want to serve. Jury service, unquestionably, is one of the highest forms of public service. How do we convey that? Well, in the age of COVID, which has taught us that we can work in a totally different way, the idea of getting jurors to come to court. We have a 700-seat jury room. I don't think if they socially distance it properly, you can get 75 people in it, maybe 100. That's not going to do. Most of these criminal trials and the big tobacco cases and things of that nature use a lot more jurors. I think one of the things we have to do is hope that very shortly there'll be a workable vaccine. That might resolve some of the problems. You can pick your juries, and I watched the way in which that was done. I was very impressed. Can be done the way it was done. You can get their questionnaires to them online. You can get the responses, and you can do your voir dire. Then the problem becomes, how do you do your criminal trials? Because there it's a totally different method. And you guys know that once we go back into trials, the civil side is kind of going to get shorted for quite a while. But that's an issue that can be resolved between the trial bar and the chief judge and the clerk's office to make sure that it comes off. But the future is...
Thank you very much, Judge.
All right, the future will have to wait.
Ms. Forman.
Yes. Jurors are chosen by their driver's license. Once that driver's license drops, Department of Motor Vehicles is the one that chooses them to be a juror. We get that information from DMSV. Then we send out the jury notice. Then that person, if that person is not capable of coming to jury duty, they send that form back in, marked off why they couldn't come. And those that do come, some of them will have excuses not to want to serve. So at this moment, this is how it's done. So the chief judge and myself have been working together in reference to how can we do this by Zoom. It's in process with the Zoom as far as the jurors themselves. The questionnaire, if it's not on the Judiciary Administrative website or my website as of yet, it will be out there soon. So we're playing around with it. The chief judge and myself, we're playing around with it. And we're doing what we need to do to try to get, things done by Zoom when it comes to the trial hearings. And so we're working on it. We're working on it.
All right, Mitch.
Okay, well, thank you. The next question still deals with technology, and it's extremely important to the trial lawyers and I'm sure members of the community as well. Please, all of you, give us some insight into the technology that's currently being used in the clerk's office, what you would do to enhance it, where you see the technology perhaps 1, 2, 3 years down the line within the next term of the clerk. And tell us, please, as part of that, what the Odyssey system is and how it needs, if it does need improvements, how you would propose improvements for that type of system. And so I'd like to start out with Clerk Forman. Go ahead, please.
Okay. Our Odyssey system is joined together with the sieges. They're able to see what we're doing when it comes to all of the trials that goes on or any of the hearings that's going on. You're able to see exactly what is on our Odyssey, but you're not able to make those changes. We have it already in process, the artificial intelligence that's going on, where the robotic processing, meaning that once an attorney file a case, you'll be able to get your information within 24 hours. So that has been in the midst for quite some time. We're working on it. They're making sure all the kinks are going to be out. So it's not that we're not upgrading where we are with Odyssey. It's just it takes time for us to do what we need to do to make sure that the system is going to function and it's going to work correctly. The state attorney's office, the PD's office is able to see what we have on Odyssey. They're able to pull their files, their case files down off of Odyssey. So once again, they're not able to make any changes to what we put into Odyssey on our end. So Rome wasn't built overnight, but we're processing slowly in what the direction that we need to go in the future. Right now, we're in the 21st century, so we're in a decade. So each and every day, my IT team, my CTD department is working on making sure that everything that we do is going into artificial intelligence, because a lot of times, like with West Palm Beach, they have artificial intelligence on one side that they're working with. So we're working with the same thing to make sure that the processing of AI with robotic processing is moving forward. So it's moving forward. We just got to stay into the future and make sure that what we're doing is going to affect everyone. Everyone. Thank you.
Judge Backman, your vision for the technology in the future with regard to the clerk's office, please.
Let me start with 2 quotes. The first comes from Colin Powell. A leader's a problem solver. The second one comes from millennium ago from Socrates. And the secret to change is to focus all of our energy not on fighting the old, but building the new. And that's what we have to look at. We know what the system is at the present time. We know, at least from the legal profession, the legal side, that it is a system that needs change. The Odyssey programs, and please, Madam Clerk, if I state this incorrectly, please correct me, but the courts the judge's Odyssey program and the clerk's Odyssey program don't talk to each other, and they have different information. And if I'm wrong on that, again, please. We have to have a system where all of our systems talk to each other, are protected by those boundaries that need to be kept separate. Clerk's office has to keep juvenile records sealed. There are certain other matters that have to be sealed. Those should not be accessible to the general public without a court order. I believe COVID has taught us that the world of Zoom is one that will work. I want a clerk's office that is virtually operational, just like we do now. Why should a person, you talked about jurors and how to get them better involved. If they're doing it from home, they have less of an excuse. They're not missing work if they're even lucky enough to have work today. But we have to sit down, all the members of this, our environment, we have to look at where the problems are, and collectively between all of the different aspects of the judicial system, including the public, bar, and of course this is in relationship to the bar, we need to work out those programs, bring in the proper people in order to make those changes going into the third decade of the 21st century.
Okay.
Thank you, Judge Speiser.
Yes, the answer to that question for me anyways, is going to focus both on technology and matters other than technology. From talking with the lawyers and from my experience working with the different divisions of the clerk's office, one of the biggest problems we have is a lack of interface and lack of openness between the clerk and the lawyers who are the primary majority users of the clerk's office system. I propose that on a monthly basis, if we're still in a pandemic era, on a Zoom platform, but if once we're past that, an open meeting where the clerk of the court would meet with any and all members of the bar in Broward County who have issues with respect to the functionality and the lack of services coming from the clerk's office. Now, obviously, every system and every problem is going to have issues. Every operation is going to have issues. But the point is, we have to try and eliminate these issues before they become dilemmas and become monumental problems. And so the problem is there's no basis by which the primary users, the attorneys, have an opportunity to approach the clerk and say, hey, listen, we have this problem, we have that problem. So that's one suggestion I think is I would like to definitely follow through and create an open door policy between the users of the system and the management of the system, i.e. the clerk's office. Secondly, with respect to the clerk's operations, I agree, because about 15 to 20 years ago, I headed up a committee that was trying to have an integrated information system between the primary users of this court system, namely the state attorney, the public defender, the sheriffs, and the clerks. And obviously there'd be a lot of blocks there because certain information can't be disseminated publicly. But unfortunately, funding became the major issue, and so the county commission was not able to follow through in funding our representations.
Thank you, Jeff.
All right. One of the panelists, I believe it was Judge Backman, and I guess I'll start with you because you haven't gotten first on any of these yet. The video that was put out by the Broward County Courthouse in conjunction with ABOTA and the judiciary, watching the feedback of the jurors who actually received subpoenas in the mail, logged in, and participated in Broward County's first real jury selection on July 10th. What did you notice from watching those critiques and what they like? Suggestions and feedback, I guess, is what I'm looking for. What did you like? What didn't you like from that procedure? Judge Backman.
Oh, I like the idea. I thought that the jurors were much more engaged and involved. I think they liked the idea that they were at home, that they weren't otherwise being harassed coming to the courthouse, doing all of that. I think there was a part of that where the jurors, or many of the people that were talked to, while they liked the process, they still had their issues with the process. I'd like to believe that you'll get more individuals who are participating when we continue to use the technology, Zoom or any other platform, to make it easier. There's a program out of Miami-Dade where they send out the notice, just like our clerk does, and they report by video. And their questionnaires go out by computer, and all their interaction is by Zoom or a different platform. Let's face it, it's the future. And the first group, I think, liked it very much. I think they found it very enjoyable, very different if they had ever served previously. And I think we're going to find out more feedback the more and more we do this.
Right. Judge Speiser.
Yes, from watching the first Zoom trial that we had, that you made available to us, I was left with the feeling that not enough information was given to the jurors. And I don't fault the clerk for this, because I just think this is it was the first time that this happened, and we really learned a lot from that, that there was not enough information that was set forth in the juror summons as well as the questionnaire to get them in a better position to have less fear and more insight and understanding before the actual day came where they were going through the jury selection process. So I think that there needed to be more data that's included in the juror summons to tell them what they can expect, what they can do, and what they can't do. Now, obviously, when they come there, the judge presiding over the trial is going to have that opportunity to tell them that while they're looking at the judge and listening to the judge. But I think to eliminate a lot of insecurity, a lot of anxiety, and to make them better prepared, if we had more information, that would be a joint product of the court and of the members of ABOTA and the trial bar, that as to what more can be provided to the jurors would be something that would be more advantageous. Another concern I think that was expressed by the jurors is that what happens with respect to the scenario where the power goes out and they can't participate anymore, and they have no way of communicating with the courtroom, that all of a sudden they're not there. So I think we have to have a lot of contingencies that maybe, and understandably so, are not yet anticipated to be considered, so that dilemmas such as lack of power, dilemmas about issues with respect to the particular juror and not being able to hear the witness, not being able to see extensively what the exhibits are, so that they can voice their concerns and ask these questions before they're actually potentially selected ultimately and designated as jurors in the trial.
Time. Thank you, Judge.
Ms. Forman.
I have to apologize. I was probably a couple of days home from the hospital, so I was not watching any TVs or on any Zoom meetings or anything like that. So I don't have an answer for you. I do apologize.
Oh, okay. Mitch, do you want to go to the next one?
Sure. So here we are. We're in Florida. It's almost August, and there's a storm out there. And we don't know where it's going to go or how intense, and hopefully everyone will be safe. But the question I have at this point is, you remember the Broward School Board building and how demolished it was many years ago? What plans, what contingency plans do you have, each of you as candidates, for continuity of operations of the clerk's office if we get hit by a major hurricane? In other words, what are your post-hurricane preparedness and action plans? I'd like to start with Judge Speiser on that one.
Okay, well, obviously that decision cannot be made by the clerk himself or herself. That has to be a product of a joint agreement and meetings with the clerk, the state attorney, the public defender's office, the sheriff's office, members of the bar, both the trial bar on the civil side, on the criminal side, with respect to matrimonial lawyers, with respect to probate lawyers, juvenile lawyers. It can't be a one-sided decision, because if everyone doesn't start the contingency plan without a consensus of agreement, it's not going to work at all. So there has to be a lot of interaction and exchange of conversations and ideas. And obviously that can't take place just at the beginning, like a week away or a couple days away from a hurricane approaching. We have to have plans in effect ahead of time, way ahead of time. But with respect to protecting the equipment, with respect to taking measures to ensure the safety of the employees of the clerk and employees of all the other constitutional officers, that needs to be a focus. And it needs to be a focus, obviously, for us here in South Florida, because we're obviously at the tip of the iceberg with respect to all these types of issues coming from hurricanes.
All right, Judge Backman.
Yeah, I have to agree with an awful lot of what Judge Speiser just said. The decision does not get made in a vacuum. Like the situation today with jury trials, it's the Chief Justice of the Florida Supreme Court that has suspended the operation of these trials as far as in court. So my understanding is the courthouse isn't going to open until at least mid-October at this point. But when you're dealing with a hurricane, there is an emergency group that meets and deals with all of these issues. It's a collective issue. That school board building was an absolute mess. The courthouse lost an awful lot. And yeah, once the problem itself is past and there's no immediate danger to people, well, after COVID, and just like we're doing today, operations could end up going forward. But that too is a decision that gets made by a collective body. That's why I call them the stakeholders. All the stakeholders, including the county, who are responsible for the buildings. We have to make sure that we're in line with them. They make those decisions with us, and every bit of the equipment, the way I've seen it when we've closed in the past, has been greatly taken care of. It's all been covered. It's all been moved. Because the last thing we need to know is come out of an emergency and then find we don't have the equipment.
Ms. Forman, please.
Hi. We already have a COOP, the COOP, which is the continuity of the operational plan with the clerk's office, state attorneys, the PD's office, the Broward Sheriff's Office, and county. That plan has been in place for quite some time, and it gets updated every 6 months by each department, each stakeholder. So every 6 months, the county touch bases with all of us to make sure that it's updated, the emergency plan, and who's going to be contacted. So that plan is already in place, and it's been there for quite some time. So every 6 months, the county will reach out to us to make sure that we update it with whomever is going to be a contact person for it. So our COOP has already been updated, and we are set and ready for any storm that come through. So just like I said, state attorney's office, PD's office, the Broward Sheriff's Office, county, as well as the clerk's office, we're ready.
Jeff?
All right. Well, we've been working quite a bit with the judiciary and the leadership of Chief Judge Jack Tudor. And I believe, based on everything that we've seen, that Broward County has really led the way in terms of being innovative and adopting some of this technology early on in March and being willing to do that. What do you foresee your relationship to be with the chief judge, and is the relationship with a chief judge important? Now, obviously, Ms. Forman is in that position right now, so I actually will give her the floor first on that particular question, the relationship between a clerk of the courts and the chief judge.
The chief judge and myself, we have a great working relationship. There's nothing that the clerk's office doesn't do when it affects the judiciary side that the chief judge does not know. If there's anything that the clerk's office need to know, he contacts me himself directly. So we have a great working relationship. He asks questions, I ask questions. You know, we agree to disagree, we'll disagree to agree. So that relationship that Judge Tudor and I have is a great working relationship with his team as well as with my team. and looking forward to continuing to work with him. Thank you.
Judge Speiser.
Yes, I think I spoke to you earlier, Jeff, when I wanted to find out some of the parameters here. I expressed to you my deep respect for Judge Tudor. Judge Tudor is an amazing man, and I have the utmost respect for him, and I know I have a good relationship with him. I think one of the advantages of having, you know, Broward County has never had, as far as I know, an attorney or a former judge serving as a clerk of the court. And I think the advantage of that is that not only will the clerk, if in fact it's an attorney or former judge, have the benefit of having somebody that's hands-on with the clerk's office, but also the benefit of having somebody that has basically served as a judge and basically has walked the walk as well as talked the talk from the perspective of being a member of the judiciary. So I think that's a real plus that we haven't had here in the history of the clerk's office. With respect to decisions that are made, I think everybody in the system, no matter where you're from, public defender, state attorney, the county commission, and the clerk's office, all has to have respect for the chief judge. And that's an absolute. And he's very innovative, and he's obviously not afraid to be a leader and a pioneer. Obviously, with respect to what we've witnessed here over the last couple of weeks, with respect to the trial, the virtual trial that we had, civil trial that we had. So, yes, absolutely, everyone has to work on the same page, not only with the chief judge but with the state attorney. And these relationships have to be fostered and they have to be maintained. It's very, very important.
Judge Beck.
Judge Speiser made that a lot easier for me. But my relationship with the chief judge also goes way back. In fact, the first time he ran for chief judge, my wife and I were getting ready to get on a cruise, and I had to get an Uber to come back to the courthouse to vote for him, which turned out to be a very lucky thing for our circuit because he won. Jack is a great guy. He really is. He's got plans. He's not afraid of it. A lot of our former colleagues went into these Zoom hearings kicking and screaming, as I'm sure did many of the lawyers. But from what I understand, it's worked well. But it's not only the relationship between the clerk and the chief judge. That, of course, is very critical. But you have to include the other members of the system. You have the judges, you have the clerk, but you also have the state attorney, the public defender, and the sheriff's office. To change programs in many ways, you need the buy-in from all of these different groups. I'm very fortunate. I know every single person who's running in each of the different races, and I have an excellent relationship with each. So I would be able to at least have a good working relationship. And one thing that the clerk said that's very important is you don't have to agree on all things, as long as you do it agreeably. But there are always solutions that people who are willing to move a system forward can come up with. And I think that it's very, very likely that we are going to have all new constitutional officers. At least I would like to think that. And I think that we can move our system into the future where we really need to take it from today.
Thank you. Mitch?
Mitch's time? Okay. It's a big county, and running for a countywide office in this community with such a large population has got to be a big task. So please, you can object if you want. I'm going to give you a compound question. The compound question is...
Yeah, but how are you going to rule on it, Mitch?
I'll leave that to Judge Tudor. What compels you to run for this job? And most importantly, how do you think the public is perceiving your candidacy for this important position? Okay, so I'll start out with Clerk Forman. Ms. Forman, please.
Well, I'm hoping that the public is receiving me as a woman who has done her job, stood by the statutes that I'm supposed to go by. And I'm running to retain my seat because I have a lot of work to continue to be done. So I will move forward in reference to doing what I need to do, staying away from things that should not be done inside of the office illegally that others wanted me to do. So my work has spoken for itself, and I have stayed on top of what needed to be done in the office, as well as all 67 counties, because we do have statutes that we all have to follow. And I hope the public will view that when it came to the legal community, I joined bases with the Broward County Bar Association that if there are and were any problems, we jumped on it right away. So it wasn't, we stepped out, joining with each other. So I have took everything under consideration. We jumped on it, we did what we needed to do. So it's not that when one attorney calls and we don't answer, we do. So I want them to see what I have done in the past 3.5 years and move forward on that.
Judge Backman?
Yeah. You know, I came out of retirement to do this in the encouragement of a lot of the bar, a lot of the community. The way I looked at it, we needed to change the direction and the attitude of the office. I think we needed an office that was professional, competent, accountable, transparent, motivational, innovative, which I think is a very important way of going forward, truthful, creative, organized, team-oriented, and decisive, and collegial. It has to be changed. Leadership from the top isn't the way everything gets done. In fact, most people from the entry level to the top have great ideas on how to make the changes that they know need to be changed. They have the experience and the way to do it. Of course, the money that's available to pay any of them is a pittance, and I'm hoping we're going to have a discussion about money before we end this, because it's becoming a critical crisis that has to be addressed. But change for the sake of change doesn't have to be done. When change because of the status quo needs to be done, you need to move into the future. And the future requires leadership skills that come from a lifetime of involvement, not just at a given point. And this office, I think, has the potential to be the #1 office in the state with the help of all of our partners.
And Judge Speiser, please.
Okay. I've been a pretty good speller for the most of my life, but one word I can't seem to spell is retirement. And I had to retire in January of 2019 because of age. I worked out an arrangement with the chief judge that because I wasn't ready to retire, that I would continue to work for free, because when you retire as a judge, you have to sit out for 1 year before you could come back and get paid. But I wasn't interested in getting paid. I was going to start getting my pension, and I just still wanted to work. And Judge Tudor was kind enough to allow me to come in, and I worked 3 days a week as a judge. Wasn't getting paid, still doing probate. Until about 5 months into that, I was contacted by the Division of Retirement that said, even though this was a win-win situation for both the judiciary and for me, that if you are working for nothing, you're not deemed to have retired, and therefore you can't collect your pension. Well, so I had to stop going into court. I still worked around the courthouse on different projects, rewriting the guardianship statute and a few other projects I was asked to work on, but I wasn't able to go into court. So in January of this year, I did qualify because I was out for 1 year to work as a senior judge. So I took over the Judge Singal's division and handled the civil division for about 4 to 5 months. And so I am a workaholic, and I'm proud of that fact. When I was asked to consider running for the office of the position of clerk of the court, I did so because I realized there were so many challenges that existed. And I do not walk away from challenges. And so because that opportunity was there, I had served in many different divisions of the courthouse, not just one division, many different divisions. And I did a lot of lobbying. I've been very active in Tallahassee with respect to seeking legislation successfully in the area of mental health and also with respect to the area of elder law. So I'm familiar with that necessity, which is part and parcel of the clerk's office.
Okay, Jeff?
Okay. Are there morale issues in the clerk's office? And if so, how can they be improved? And if you believe there are, what do you base that on? I'll start with Judge Speiser.
Okay. And I say this with respect, but I say this also in all honesty. I've seen the clerk's office from many different divisions, positions and divisions. There is definitely, from my perspective, a big morale problem in the clerk's office, Many clerks there are unhappy. And the reason why they're unhappy is with respect to the lower level clerks, their pay is ridiculously low. Now, this issue has come up on several other occasions in the past where it was, and the current clerk indicated, well, she's given them raises. Well, the raises that she also said that their pay was mandated, their pay levels was mandated by the legislature. That's not true. The legislature doesn't mandate what their pay level is. And all the raises that these clerks received were the same raises that every other government employee received for cost of living increases. So the starting salary and the opportunity for promotion for lower level clerks is almost non-existent, and the salaries are embarrassingly low. And with respect to promotions, that's a problem. With respect to the positions that are in the higher administration in the clerk's office, one of the things that I would do if I was elected clerk is I'm going to immediately look at the salary that's being paid to these folks and inquire as to whether or not what they're being paid justifies the work they're doing. Does the work that they're doing justify the salary that they're being paid? So I think there's also a big fear level in that office. In other words, when you're a leader, respect is earned, okay? It's not bestowed upon you because you have a title as a clerk or you have a title as a judge. So I feel that there's a lack of respect for the current clerk because it hasn't been earned. There's a fear factor in there. There's a negativity in there. There's a big concern that they're just not getting opportunities for promotion from within, but rather from without. So I would have an open door policy whereby individuals. Okay,
thank you very much, Judge.
Ms. Forman. Sure, you're on mute. Sorry
about that. The morale in my offices has nothing to do with fear. I am a very kind person. I have a heart of gold. If you ever got the opportunity to really know who I am. The fee of what they pay, we did a pay study, a scale according to what the county is paid and what we're paid. So I did a pay study this year because I needed to know why, because the amount of money that everyone is making has been there way before I became the clerk of the courts. When the state and all the other ones got a pay increase, the Broward County Clerk of Courts did not get that pay increase. So the morale in my office, I have chief directors that go to their, employees and ask them, what can we do to bring up whatever the issue might be, to bring up morale. For the past 3.5 years, we have done that. We have brought the morale up in the office with a lot of the employees. I have did everything that I could possibly do in reference to raising where they are from minimum wage, and some of them are making like $10.73. So we're moving that pay scale. And every time I try to do something in order to raise it or to move it, I get in trouble with the state in reference to what I'm doing, the legislature. So being in the clerk's office, I know what I'm talking about when it comes to that area. But the morale of the office is that it's not a scare tactic because I'm not a bully. That is something that I don't do. When I was in school, it happened. So that is something that I don't do. I didn't raise my children to be bullies. And that is something that will not go on in my office. So I treat everyone with total respect. Every single person, even people I don't even know on the street, when I see them, I say hello to them. They look at me like I've lost my mind. But as a kid growing up in Southern Alabama, this is what we did. We spoke to everybody. So my morale in my office, thank you.
Judge Backman.
This is an interesting question because it's got two dynamics to it. The first one, I think Judge Speiser hit right on the nail. There is a morale issue. That morale issue has existed for the last 20 years. It has only gotten worse over the last 3 years, 4 years. This comes from a myriad of different methods, but there is that fear factor. The clerks, all of them, from different segments, different divisions, they talk to us because they trust us. And when I say us, I'm referring to most of the judges that sit in the courthouse that have been there for a long time. You've got 2 judges here that have been there for 3.5 decades, and we've seen the changes that have happened. They're scared to death if they don't call you Madam Clerk, that they're going to get fired or reprimanded. But let's deal with the real issue that we need to. Money is a priority. Money is going to be slashed even more in this upcoming budget. So while the clerks right now some are on furlough, some are working a couple of days on, couple of days off, the entire office is not there. But no matter how you look at it, when you start looking at a potential of another $1 million off of a budget that isn't sufficient in the first place, you have to start getting very, very creative in the way in which you do it. I think when you approach and you are an open person that can go to your employees, I'm not going to send my managers in to see what the morale is. I'm going to do it myself. I think it's important to be able to know that they've got a captain at the top of the ship that they can talk to, they can confide in, and they can suggest changes. Giving raises, well, that again is a matter that is very difficult to do. But we'll talk about that in another segment.
All right, Mitch.
Okay, we do have a couple of questions, but I'll ask Jeff if you could do that. I do want to ask this question. We're talking about funding and money. We see what happened with the economy just reported today, one of the largest, if not the largest drop in our nation's economy in perhaps history. That will have implications for the courts. So my question to you all is, how do you find money if the legislature doesn't get it to you to run an efficient operation to meet the needs of the public and the court? Are there other sources, whether they be grants or nonprofits? Are there ways to raise money separate and independent and legally to support the clerk's functions so we can have the administration of justice supporting the judges, supporting the courts, but also supporting all the other functions of the office for which you each seek? So I'd like to start out with Judge Speiser on that.
Okay. Obviously, all the money that comes into the clerk's office goes back to Tallahassee from every clerk's office, not just Broward County. It all goes back to Tallahassee. All the fines and fees that it collects for all the services it renders goes back to Tallahassee. And then once the legislature in Tallahassee has all the money, then it decides how much each particular circuit clerk's office is going to get. And so involved in that process is lobbying. Okay, so it takes not only the clerk himself or herself, but also a talented staff of lobbyists to argue on behalf of the particular clerk's office in question. And obviously, Broward and Dade and Palm Beach are the largest clerk's offices that have the most responsibilities and largest population to serve. It's essential that they get significant money to meet its needs. So obviously more effort has to go into lobbying, and it has to be more focused, and we have to have better lobbyists, because if the clerk's office is not getting enough money to make its employees happy, not necessarily euphoric, but happy, then there's a problem with the lobbying not being effective. Secondly, with respect to grants, which would come from perhaps the Department of Justice or other areas, that would have to be delved into. I can't sit here and tell you that I know about the availability of grants, but certainly that has to be delved into, because it just relies solely on the legislature for the operation of the clerk's office is a problem. It's going to be a problem. You know, and there's other issues with respect to shortcomings within the clerk's office in terms of, you know, the allegations that are being made by the public defender's office that in fact $12.3 million is owed to the public defender's office. It hasn't been collected by the clerk's office with respect to their representation of indigent defendants. You know, obviously some of that money.
Time.
Okay, Ms. Forman, your answer, please.
Okay. As we all know, there are 67 counties. Majority of those 67 counties are clerk and controllers. Those who are controllers can go to their county commissioners and ask them for money to help them out if they're ever in a dire need. Broward County is not a clerk controller. Palm Beach County is, and part of certain areas of Dade County is as well. The clerk in Dade County can go to his county commissioners on certain things and he can get money if they have the money to give to him. We do have lobbyists that locally as well as in Tallahassee that lobby for us. There is the clerk's FCCC and the CCOC that does a lot of work for the clerk's office. There are no grants. We cannot apply for grants because every dollar that comes into the clerk's office is for court operation. So we're doing everything possible, because if we do not collect fees, fines, and court costs, during the time when we were closed from March 20th until June 3rd, we lost a lot of money because people were not able to come into the building to pay their fees or to file for any cases or, you know, motions or whatever the case may be. So our money comes from fees, fines, court costs, filing fees, marriages, passports, you know, such as that. So that's where we are when it comes to, you know, with the money, trying to get money, but we're working hard, and CCOC and FCCC are working hard. We have meetings every, like maybe 2 or 3 times a week with them, what we're doing. They had a conversation back and forth today in reference to, you know, lobbying to the legislature, and they have done this over the years, and the legislature will not help Broward County. Thank you.
Judge Backman, please.
The statement that the legislature doesn't like Broward County is as true as you can take it. But just because we haven't been able to do something in the past doesn't mean we can't do it in the future. There are 2 issues. One, if there's a surplus, and I'm not sure how you can even have a surplus in the clerk's office that's underfunded, that all has to go back to the state. They cannot retain a surplus. That is a change that would have to be made in Tallahassee. The clerk's office can at times get money from the county. I know that the lobbyist for the office just recently made a request. I don't know what was done with it. Thirdly, just because they say we can't do grants, you can't bring a grant in to pay salaries. But my belief is that you can get a grant from a place like Google, Microsoft, some company that would be willing to come in and totally modernize and make an example of what an office can be. We've had grants in the past. Whether or not we're able to do it, that is something that we have to look at. Honestly, I've never been the clerk before, and I'm going to learn an awful lot once I become the clerk. But you have to always look forward, and you can't rely on the past, and you make those choices with the best people available.
Thank you, Judge. Jeff?
Well, I'm going to take a question from the Q&A column here, and it's similar to something I had written down here, because we have this beautiful brand new courthouse that none of us are in, I don't believe, right now. But Karen Spigler asked jurors, what if they do not have a computer or phone that they can use? Will they still be able to go to the courtroom for like a jury selection. And again, it's kind of putting the wagon before the horse. But I guess with all this space we have, do you have any ideas that how we can bridge the data divide so that certain people are not shut out just because they don't have this technology that a lot of us take for granted? I'll start with Ms. Forman.
The chief judge and I have been talking about that, and he does not at this moment want to bring any jurors in, because then with the social distancing, you know, if he brought them in, because the county had already spaced it out, we talked about it. Then he asked the question, how will we get them to the courtroom? Because then you got to walk down the hallway. The elevators are not that big. You can only maybe get 2 people in the elevator if you're social distancing. So that is left in the chief judge's hand in reference to the jurors and what he's going to do and how he's going to do that, because that's left up to all of the judges when it comes to their panels, because none of the judges are in the building except for when they do come in on their own, you know, just to pick up papers, to sign papers or whatever. They come in and they, you know, will automatically leave. But at this moment, the chief judge is not allowing any jurors in the building because there's no jury trials going on. So I'm just waiting on him.
Judge Backman.
Yeah, you know, the problem is we don't have a vaccine. People, almost everybody has a phone. And we know that there are going to be glitches in this entire system. And the way to work them out is to keep moving with them to determine where those glitches are. And once we find those glitches, how to overcome them so that if we are doing remote jury selection, everybody should have the opportunity to participate as a juror. So I told you before, I think it's one of the fundamental rights that we have as people. But you can't determine in advance where all the problems are going to come from. Most people do have telephones. I've never seen anyone these days that doesn't have a cell phone at least. But again, we have to be able to do it. You can't bring a person into the courthouse until it's totally safe to do it and all the safeguards are included. So again, I can tell you that once this election is over in 2.5 weeks or 2 weeks, 5 days and a number of hours, that starting right after Labor Day, going to start putting all these task forces together to start answering these questions so that come January, we can start the implementation and moving forward. But again, when the budget starts very, very soon, they're going to be short even more money than they presently are. And I think that needs to be addressed. I think you might have all read it in the Florida Bar News, the article from 2 days ago on what's happening as far as the funding is concerned and the cutting of $60 million from the clerks' budgets. And I don't mean all clerks' budgets. I mean from the budgets themselves, because revenues are down, counties are going to suffer, the state's going to suffer, we're all going to suffer. And we now need to figure out how to all work together to make it through and have a system that can operate and work with less money. And there might be ways in which internally we can find that money. We can look at the contracts to see if we're getting the biggest bang for the buck. You know, we can look at other avenues. I know that Judge Speiser raised the issue of the 12.3 million, but again, whether that's owed or not, I don't know. It might be a total computer glitch. I can only tell you that since last November or earlier, there's been nothing done to try and correct that.
And Judge Speiser.
Yes. No, obviously we're talking about oranges and apples here, because they're apples and oranges, because in the once we get past this pandemic scenario, whether someone has a computer or whether someone has a phone is really of no consequence with respect to their ability to serve as a juror. But what we're really focusing on is during this pandemic period, where obviously the only way someone can participate virtually is through use of a computer and use of a phone. Now, how are we going to know whether they have a phone, and how are we going to know whether they have where they don't have a phone and they don't have a laptop? Well, that's something that's going to have to be asked on the question on the juror summons. on a jury summons says calling people in during a period when access to the courthouse is being denied because of the presence and continuation of the pandemic scenario. So that's going to have to be asked. And and then the question becomes, if they say they'd like to serve, but they don't have an iPhone, they don't have a phone. I'm advertising. They don't have a phone, or they don't have a laptop. Then it becomes an issue of where are we going to get them from? Now, I'm sure that if in fact this was discussed among the different bars, the family bar, the criminal bar, the civil bar, probate bar, then or the probate bar doesn't have jury trials, but in those, nor family, but in those divisions where you have, and we're probably not going to have many criminal trials during the pandemic period. So what we're really focusing on is civil cases for the most part, civil jury trial. Then we're going to have to try and see if collectively, if we can donate laptops, maybe used laptops that are available for those people who indicate they want to serve, but they don't have a computer, they don't have a phone. That's the only way I see getting around it, short of having some company like Google or Apple or somebody else donating them for this situation.
Jeff, I accidentally gave more time to Judge Backman. So Judge Speiser, you have anything else in the next 10 or 15 seconds? Then I'd like to send it over to Madam Forman to make up that time mistake that I made. Anything else on that?
I'm okay. Thank you very much.
All right, please, Ms. Forman.
I'm good.
Okay, Jeff, any other questions?
Well, at this point, I don't see a lot of questions from the voters, but I think that it would be appropriate right now with the election less than 3 weeks away, August 18th, to give all of the candidates a final opportunity, which in what may be the final debate before that election, to address the voters. So I think with that being said, I think we'll start with Judge Backman.
Thank you. What I want to say is that going back in time and trying to figure out what went wrong, remember, those that forget the lessons of history are bound to repeat it. So we need a critical review of everything that's transpired over the last 20, 30 years. We need to go paperless. We need to find a way in which the collective partnerships can all work out a way in which the lawyers are taken care of, the public is taken care of, and the judges and all the other partners. I think that being virtual, in other words, AI, Zoom, platforms of that nature are going to help in terms of the way in which our system can work, modernize, save people money. I know many lawyers who have had hearings in Palm Beach have said jokingly, well, I couldn't charge my client the 2 hours for the travel, but I was able to work 2 hours on somebody else and they didn't have to leave their homes. Right now I'm getting 5 months to the gallon. So, this does have its benefits, but the reality is it needs leadership and it needs teamwork and it needs a person that can bring people together. And my record, I believe, speaks for itself on each and every one of those areas. I think you know that I also sat on the Judicial Qualifications Commission for 8 years. So I know what goes on in courtrooms and courthouses all over the state. And lobbying is a major factor, but you can only lobby to the extent that you're allowed. The Clerk's Corporation is the corporation that primarily does all of the lobbying on behalf of the clerk's budgets. Same way the Supreme Court handles the courts. Yes, we can try to influence our legislators, but we get slapped down real fast when we try to do that. So I think the future requires new leadership.
Thank you.
And I'm done.
We'll go to Judge Speiser.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here again today. And if elected, Paul and I are going to go from individuals that have been supervising one person, our JA, to a situation where we're going to be supervising anywhere from 750 to 800 people. That's a challenge. That's a challenge. But like I say, I enjoy challenges. And I have served in many different divisions of the court, which has given me an opportunity to see what the pluses are with respect to the clerk's office, as well as the many negatives that I see that exist there. Not only that I see, but that I hear from just being in the courthouse. I think I have a lot to offer in terms of diversity of experience as a judge with respect to my leadership as administrative chief of the criminal division for 6 years, administrative chief of the probate division for 4 years. I also have shown a lot through my innovativeness with respect to creating the first mental health court, of which there are now 600 in the United States of America, the first drug court in Broward County, and the first Veterans Court in Broward County. So I have innovative skills. And I'm also a person that is known around the courthouse as being very approachable, that if you have a problem, ask Judge Speiser. He's not going to close the door on you. And so I feel that I have that ability to get along with people. I have a lot of experience in Tallahassee lobbying. I've sat on the 4th District Court of Appeals for 1 week and authored 4 different opinions that were published. I've written several law review articles, both in locally as well as international law journals. So I consider myself to be well-rounded. Work is never a problem for me. And so I feel that I have a lot to offer this community in terms of somebody who has worked in the courthouse a number of years, know where issues need to be resolved. And I have the connections, I believe, in terms of relationships with people that who otherwise have been reticent and reluctant.
Thank you. Jeff?
And Ms. Forman.
Hi, once again, thank you, ABOTA, for bringing me on this Zoom to give my platform. Thank you very much. And hopefully everyone will continue to stay safe during this COVID. It is real. It is real. Yes, I've been the clerk for the past 3.5 years. I have went into the office and made a lot of changes that needed to be made. IT, the operation side of the clerk's office. And I need to correct something in reference to when you first started out, Jeff, about the employees. There's only 686 employees.
Oh, okay.
Yes, because a lot of those employees have retired. When I say a lot of them have retired because they put in their 30+ years. Yes, I want to continue to be the clerk of the courts. I have joined forces with a lot of, like I said, Broward County Bar Association. We answer questions. My door is open door policy. I get along with everybody. I am a very respectful person. With the grandmother that I had that died at 101, that raised her children, her grandchildren, and a 3rd generation, to have respect for yourself first and to have respect for others. So if anybody know anything about a good Southern bringing up, then you know. So yes, Brenda Forman. I'm asking everyone out there that is listening tonight, cast your vote for Brenda D. Forman to retain her seat. So I'm not going to get any further into any other issues about what someone else said and how this happened, that happened, but I'm only speaking for myself. And I want to thank everyone for listening tonight.
Well, Mitch, do you have anything you would like to add?
No, I just want to thank everybody for participating and all the viewers. Jeff, what do you want to add to finish?
Well, again, I just appreciate all of the candidates coming on and speaking to the membership of the American Board of Trial Advocates. We really, really appreciate it. And, you know, this position is very important to all trial lawyers and to all the public. It should be important because more people are going to have interactions with their local courthouse than they are usually with a national election, but that doesn't get a lot of the attention. So we wanted to offer this platform, and I want to thank Judge Speiser, Judge Backman, and Ms. Forman for giving us your time and coming on here and answering these questions. I would encourage anybody watching to go to our website at www.abotaftl.org to see all of the different projects that we've been working on and to see the work that we've been doing with the Broward County Judiciary. And we will continue to do that because ABOTA is an organization that requires its members to be members of the bar for 5 years and to have tried at least 10 jury trials. So we take it all very seriously, and it's, about making sure justice is available for the public. And the Seventh Amendment is vital to that. So again, we're supporting the Bill of Rights. I hope that all of you watching or listening will cast a vote in the August 18th election. And if you ever have any questions for ABOTA, please look us up on the website. We certainly appreciate your time this evening. I want to leave you with a quote from the late John Lewis, who had his memorial today. You have to be optimistic in order to continue to move forward. I think that his words are very important in today's times with everything going on. And I hope that all of you watching, listening, are doing okay, and just keep going at it because things will get better.
Very
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all, everybody.
Everyone, Jeff, Mitch, the whole organization, thank you very much for letting us be here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.